This is the Art of Darkness podcast with Kevin Kautzman.
And Abbie Lucas.
We're a couple of very online writers interested in the dark side of creativity.
This show is about art and the people who make it, what it costs them, and what it takes to bring something unique and impactful into the world.
On each episode, we examine the life and work of an artist you might think you know.
Don't worry, they're all safely dead.
We aren't. Find us online at artofdarkpod.com, and please support the show through Patreon or Substack. You get extra stuff. Thank you. All right, we're back with another core episode here at the very tail end of the foul year of our Lord 2025, Season 5. Abbie has done a fantastic job coming into the hot seat. The second co-host, or I guess the third co-host of Art of Darkness, and she has a banger.
Wait, who was the
episode.
second?
Well, it was Brad. I'm the second. Brad was the first.
Oh, I see.
Of course,
Right.
Brad will be back next year. He's coming back. He's going to do a core episode in the summer, and we've got some other special treats for you all. Please consider supporting the pod over at Patreon or Substack. There's so much extra stuff there. We just did a watch party. We watched Breakfast at Tiffany's, which is, I think, a fine segue to talk about the subject we're going to be covering today. Abbie, who do you have for the people out in podcast land? Who are we going to talk about here?
Today we will be talking about Audrey Hepburn.
Audrey Hepburn. Okay, well, why don't we start with the question, Abbie? Hit me.
Kevin, what do you know about Audrey Hepburn?
Well, I know we'll always have Breakfast at Tiffany's. I think I remember the film, and if I recall, we both kind of liked it. At least that's one thing we've got. It's we watched that behind the paywall.
We did watch that.
And obviously it's problematic, a certain part of it, but they really toned down the sex work elements, although they were more present than I recall. Maybe I'm just less naive now. Maybe we'll read a little bit from the novella on the After Dark.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to ask you what you have, but I got to answer the question. What do I know about Audrey Hepburn? I know she did not like pastries. Which came up. So shooting the iconic scene where she's pawing at Tiffany's, which again, this time just hit me so much harder. This is a movie that, if you watch it when maybe you're a teenager, or you're in your 20s, I don't know. Not so much. I don't know. Maybe. But after living a little bit and having lived in the big shitty multiples, having come from the middle of nowhere, as it were, it hits a little different as you mature. She's English, I believe. No. Okay. Well, okay. Well, I guess I'm going to get Abbie saying no. Okay. Primarily a radio show, Abbie. Primarily a radio show on YouTube. And what else do I know about her? Well, most of what I know comes from our discussions on that episode where we did Breakfast at Tiffany's. Obviously an A-list celebrity, a stunning beauty, but kind of the anti-Marilyn in terms of her physique. She's got kind of that certain angular, I don't want to say boyish, but a kind of like, she's very thin, very slender, but a striking face. Very beautiful, extremely talented. Actor of the mid-century. That's what I know about Audrey Hepburn. Aside from that, all the sensitive young men out there, I'm just telling you, be aware of the Audrey Hepburn Breakfast at Tiffany's poster, and just.
I still don't know what the hell you mean by this.
Yeah, maybe we'll save that for the After Dark. What do you? Speaking of the After Dark, Abbie, before we get into the meat of this, what do you have for us for behind the paywall after the main episode here, which is free? And you're welcome.
I was just going to talk a little bit more about Truman Capote's reluctance to have her be in Breakfast at Tiffany's in the first place, and a little bit of stuff around her father.
Okay. Yeah, maybe some daddy issues. We love daddy issues on the pod. I'll read for the last time on a core episode this year. I think this is it. This is it for the year. So I will
This is
read.
it, yeah.
I will read Catching the Big Fish one last time as we celebrate our year of David Lynch, R.I.P. Not covering him next year. We're going to let it settle a little more. We're going to wait for a bio to come out. The season is posted on the website artofdarkpod.com. We got some really good stuff coming up, including Freud, old Siggy Freud, which I'm going to be doing next weekend. So you got 2 core episodes coming in hot. I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, whatever you observe. Happy doom scrolling. Got a lot of extra time to doom scroll this time of year. Boy, the timeline is just really
I hate it
depressing.
so much.
We love to stay busy on Art of Darkness. All right, Abbie. So if you want to get the bonus After Dark, you know where to go. Please support the pod. The best way to do it is just to sign up for a year at a time. Just, you deserve it. Give yourself a treat. It's still Christmas. We have 12 days of Christmas.
Still Christmas.
It's Christmas until the tree comes. It's Christmas until Valentine's Day in my house. Okay? And, give yourself a treat. Buy yourself something special. Get yourself a year of Art of Darkness to get all the bonus stuff. You don't got to think about it. It helps us out, and we really appreciate y'all. All right, Abbie. I don't know hardly anything about Audrey Hepburn, so I'm going to learn as we go here.
I think of all the people I've covered this year, you've known more about her than the rest of them, would you say?
Chanel, I knew a little bit about. Who else? Yeah, but I didn't know very much about Lee Miller. I didn't know anything about Maritamita. Yeah, I put her below Chanel, but above the others. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna learn.
The bulk of this episode has been researched from a book called Audrey, Her Real Story by Alexander Walker, which has a very beautiful photo of her on the front cover. Hard to find a photo that's not beautiful. Also bits and pieces that I just remember from the multiple other biographies I've read of her in my lifetime because I am genuinely a fan. So here we go. Look up the word lovely in the dictionary and you would see a picture of Audrey Hepburn. Decades after her death, she is still one of the world's most beloved movie stars, having played a plethora of iconic roles during the golden age of Hollywood. But Audrey, who so wanted to be loved, felt that her life was lacking that magic element. Spoiler alert, she doesn't have the kind of life that would put her in the Art of Darkness Hall of Fame, but the abandonment and shame she felt around her father and other male figures in her life clouded a life that would otherwise be described, as she would put it, divine. When asked about her childhood, Audrey Hepburn would say very little. Even with close friends, she deflected, diverted, or fell silent. This was not coyness, it was protection. There were aspects of her early life that were painful, bewildering, and later dangerous to reveal. On Audrey's mother's side, she came from ancient Dutch aristocracy. The Van Heemstra family traced its lineage back to the 16th century and included landowners, military officers, judges, and royal courtiers. Her mother, Baron Ella van Heemstra, was born in 1900 into this world of privilege and expectation. She was a high-spirited, romantic, and drawn to strong, charismatic men. Raised in Christian Science, Ella believed deeply in willpower, optimism, and the idea that one could think one's way out of misfortune, a belief that would shape both her marriages and her parenting.
Whoa. Christian Science is wild. They're the ones who don't go to doctors. Is that correct? I think that's true. Pretty sure that's true. Yeah, that's you say she's not maybe the darkest person we're going to cover. Well, coming from a line of Dutch aristocrats, and again, we got every time it comes up, we got to pause and thank the Dutch for capitalism. Thank you.
Yay.
And wow.
And going 50-50.
Okay. We have Dutch listeners, okay? We love our Dutch folks here on Art of Darkness. But Christian Science is wild. They're out there. It's a Bible-based religion founded by Mary Baker Eddy, emphasizing God as divine principle and viewing reality as spiritual, not material. She had a book called Science and Health with Key to Scripture. In any event, I think the sort of, I don't know if it's a cliche, but yeah, I mean, I go online, I go to Catholic Answers, the One True Faith. It says, why don't Christian scientists allow doctors to treat them? Christian scientists don't believe in, and now this is the Catholics talking, so I don't want to
Right.
start a
The
sectarian.
Catholic truth, by the way.
Absolutely. Yes, capital C Catholic. Oh, and I can unlock a free ebook with 20 answers to the real Jesus. Wonderful. Catholic pop-ups. But they do not let so here. So for your friend to consider a visit to the doctor, he would be guilty of not having applied the truth or divine principle which Christ taught. In his mind, he is not experiencing an objective illness, but rather error or a mistaken perception that he is sick. Therefore, going to a doctor in
A
search of
mistaken perception.
yeah. Therefore, I mean, this is very much present, though. Everybody goes, "Ew, this is weird," but it's like, who's
Yeah.
got their manifesting board out? Who up manifesting they $1 million in a Lambo, right? Who
No,
up?
I know a few of these. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean it's magical thinking, but this is grounded in Christ, so it's different. Therefore, going to a doctor in search of a physical cure would be diametrically opposed to his belief system, and it would only fuel the fire of his error. I mean, again, we look at this and go, "Oh, that's odd," but I mean, a lot of people die in hospitals. The medical system,
Hmm.
I don't know. It seems like every 20 years there's some sort of
It's
new.
not perfect.
No, it's imperfect. I mean, the Western medicine, and I'm going on here. I had a lot of coffee, but Western medicine's very good if you're bleeding out on the pavement. Okay, but it's
Hmm.
maybe not so good at the more holistic thing. I think that we need a balance. I think a lot of it is diet and
Oh, yeah.
stress and whatever else. But
Or
that's a
drink
little.
more water.
Yeah, drink more water and less booze. Consider that you might lose some pounds, things like that.
Hmm.
But yeah. So anyway, that's a little brief hit of Christian Science. That is fun. Maybe on the After Dark we should talk. We would do a little
Oh,
more of a
yeah.
deep dive. Yeah, I'm gonna make some notes so we remember. In any
Okay.
event, cool.
All right. Well, Ella's first marriage failed quickly. Her second to Joseph Victor Anton Hepburn Roustin, Audrey's father,
Whoa.
would prove far more consequential. Hepburn Rouston styled himself as a British financial advisor, but in truth, he was something closer to an adventurer. Charming, evasive, linguistically gifted, and financially unreliable. His background was deliberately obscured even from his daughter. Audrey grew up believing that she had noble Hepburn ancestry, a fiction her father himself appears to have believed, or at least encouraged. Joseph Hepburn Rouston was not born in England, but in Bohemia. Though legally registered as British, he reinvented himself repeatedly, changing names, professions, and allegiances. Photographs from the 1920s and early 30s show a handsome, confident man living well. Polo fields in Java, white suits in colonial drawing rooms, the life of someone accustomed to charm opening doors. Ella met him in the Dutch colonial world and was immediately captivated. They married in 1926 and settled in Brussels. Audrey was born there in 1929. Her earliest memories were sensory rather than emotional, light refracting through chandeliers, music-filled rooms, dancing before she could fully speak. Winter, whiteness, and stillness would later become her emotional refuge. The Swiss Alps, where she chose to spend her final years, echo these earliest impressions.
Oh, so
Behind
she
this,
was. Hang on. Sorry, I'm interrupting, but
yeah.
so she was a rich kid. I mean, she was acting into.
Uh, yeah, I mean, yes and like no, yes and no. It's one of
Hmm,
those ones where the parents were aristocratic, but there wasn't like cash money.
I see. Okay.
Yeah,
Understood. So Euro rich.
Euro rich. Yeah.
Understood. Okay, good. Got
And
it.
it would come to be a more dire situation when everybody's favorite war turns up.
Ah, yes, we can't get out of the year without another sojourn into World War II. My new theory is that World War II never ended, and that's why we're still talking about it every single episode. Very good, Abbie. Okay, I'll let you get back to it.
Okay. Behind this elegance, however, was instability. Audrey's parents quarreled fiercely. She hid beneath tables to escape their raised voices. Determined never to become part of the conflict, she learned silence early. This self-suppression hardened into self-control. Those who later worked with her remarked on her extraordinary calm, her lack of temperament, her instinctive courtesy. These were not innate virtues, they were survival strategies refined into grace. Her anxieties manifested physically. She overate, chewed her nails, and avoided dolls, preferring animals, creatures that offered affection without emotional complexity. Her mother was disciplined and demanding, less demonstrative in affection, but committed to Audrey's welfare. From her, Audrey absorbed rigor, restraint, and the conviction that desire must be balanced by duty. Her father, meanwhile, was the adored parent. He indulged her, broke rules, and radiated confidence. When he vanished, the loss was devastating. By the mid 1930s, both of Audrey's parents had become involved in right-wing politics. Ella, like many European aristocrats of the period, was drawn to the rhetoric of discipline, spiritual renewal, and national strength that had surrounded fascism before its full horrors were understood. She even wrote an article for the British Union of Fascists publication Black Shirt, framing fascism as a moral and spiritual corrective to materialism. Her commitment was idealistic rather than tactical and was short-lived. Her husband's
Fashy mom. I didn't have that on didn't have that on the bingo card, did you?
No. and fashy dad.
Oh.
Yeah. Her husband's involvement was far darker. Hepburn Roustin became entangled with Nazi propaganda networks in Britain and Europe, working with figures linked to German intelligence. By 1938, he was directing a press agency
that's an
that
oxymoron.
As
German intelligence. That's a joke a German would love. I'm sorry, too much coffee. Go on, Abbie.
By 1938, he was directing a press agency that functioned as a front for Nazi influence. He was under surveillance by British intelligence. His life was spiraling towards catastrophe. Audrey knew none of this at the time. What she knew was that one day, age 6, her father was gone. Her mother discovered him in bed with the family nurse. After a violent argument, he walked out and never returned.
Okay.
I was
listen, that's dark enough. Dad cheats with the nurse at 6 and is gone.
I mean, I have no complaints of this type in my life. It is pretty dark.
yeah. Losing a parent is very much on the bingo card for great artists. You don't want to. It's not a requirement, but it comes up a lot. There you go.
I was destroyed, Audrey later said. I cried for days. I worshipped my father. I always envied other people's fathers. I had no one to cuddle me. The abandonment left a wound that never fully healed. Her mother loved her deeply, but struggled to show it. Audrey learned to self-contain, to be undemanding, grateful, and emotionally economical. After the divorce, life became materially modest. Despite her aristocratic background, Ella worked part-time and managed carefully. Audrey was trilingual, well-educated, and musically inclined. For a time, they lived in England, where Audrey attended a small village school in Kent. There, she was known simply as Audrey Roustin. She danced, joined the Brownies, and took ballet lessons. She was outwardly ordinary, but inwardly guarded. Do you have the Brownies in America?
I think we do. It's like Girl Scouts, right?
Yeah, it's Girl Scouts.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we do. Yeah.
Just
Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, a brownie. Were you a brownie, Abbie?
I did Girls Brigade for a little while, but it was too religious for me.
Girls Brigade was religious. Of what sort of non-denominational Protestant?
Yeah, probably more like C of E leaning.
So high church brownies. You were a cadet. Did you shoot guns?
I was a cadet later on, but that was just purely army, not anything.
You were an army cadet.
Yeah, I've told you this, I'm sure.
No, I'm aware, but I'm not sure that it's come out on the pod. I think that's very fascinating. I think of Abbie's life as sort of like Starship Troopers until she got to London, and then it all went away. In any event, interesting.
Yeah,
okay, cool.
I was the like skinny kid who was really truly quite pathetic. But the commandant had said that to my mother that it's the skinny ones who usually are the hardest on themselves, or the ones that are like the most sort of robust.
Tenacious.
And then so I left when I stopped doing cadets at school. It was to do drama instead, which is
Ah,
like a different kind of army, but it was more
mhm.
my people and my
Sure,
speed.
sure.
But apparently afterwards, if anyone in the cadets refused to do push-ups or like anything tough, the people that had been in it with me at the time would say, if Abbie Lucas can do this, you can do it too.
Right. Okay. Very good. Very good. We're single-handedly trying to rehabilitate the image of theater kids on Art of Darkness.
Hey,
We
it's tough to
have
be a
some.
theater kid. It,
Listen, especially now. Yeah, go on.
yeah, I mean, well, I don't know what it's like now, but like my theater teacher was a tough lady. Like
Right.
she was like, "Oh, you want to be a director? Fine, you direct all the youth theater now." My lunchtimes, my after schools, I was doing theater
You were
constantly.
grinding. Hey,
Yeah.
right on. Okay, and now look at you. You're on a niche arts podcast and talking about Audrey Hepburn.
Talking about Audrey Hepburn. Um, so in her small village of Kent, she was known as Audrey Rooston. Yes, okay, we've covered this bit. She was outwardly ordinary but inwardly guarded. At age 9, she wrote in a friend's autograph book, "If you have a friend, then keep her. Let not that friend your secrets know." It is an unsettling sentiment for a child, evidence of how early Audrey learned that privacy was safety. In 1939, without warning, she left England. No goodbyes, no explanations. The reason was urgent, though unclear. Like so much in Audrey Hepburn's life, it vanished into silence. This is a quote from the book from an interview with a childhood friend. Joan Hawkins cannot recall the exact date, but it was certainly in 1939, possibly just before Audrey's 10th birthday. The Baroness was in the Netherlands at the time. Joan saw Audrey with a small travel bag and wearing a white beret getting into a local taxi. It went down the street, past the coal merchant's lorry, and turned out of sight going in the direction of Folkestone and I suppose the train for London. And that was the last I ever saw of Audrey Hepburn. Whatever the reason for her sudden departure, it must have been urgent. She had no time to say goodbye to us children who'd been her friends and playmates. She had come to us unexpectedly. She left us just as mysteriously. As an adult, Audrey became synonymous with openness, kindness, and light. Yet those closest to her sensed an invisible boundary. Director Stanley Donen once wrote that she was warm and loving, but never fully accessible, or something always held back. This was the cost of survival. Audrey Hepburn carried family secrets, political shame not of her making, and the trauma of abandonment with extraordinary discipline. From this came not fragility, but control, not bitterness, but compassion. And then we get on to
There are Irish exits,
the
and
war.
then there are Irish exits. That is a
Yes.
that is a woof gone, and that's traumatizing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the term Irish exit is kind of fitting because I think Joseph may have been part Irish. It's kind of unclear where this man really came from. But
Very few things feel better than an Irish exit when you do it, when you deploy it tactically, and you simply like abandon any social duty to say farewell.
I
Especially
know
in
someone
Minnesota,
who's very good at it, who just
it's an
like
art.
disappears, and you
It's
never see her do it, and you're like, oh, she left, didn't she?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Very cool. Very, you get to be a little bit irritating, a little bit mysterious. You tend to get invited back. There's a whole thing about the Irish exit. The Irish exit is the polar opposite of the Minnesota exit, which is very famous. You can go look it up online. The Minnesota farewell, where it's you got to slap your knees 5 times. You got to start saying, "Oh well, oh you know, well." How about that? It takes like 45 minutes to get out the door. We're used to sort of change.
The English have the knee slap thing as well. It's a knee slap with a right.
Welp.
Better be going.
I tell you what, as you close out the season and your tenure here as co-host, that's how we're going to close the episode. All right, put a pin in it. All right, keep on keeping on, Abbie.
Okay. Uh, during the nearly 2 years Audrey spent in the English village of Elham, she never once saw the man she loved most, her father. The rupture between her parents had been absolute. From 1938 onward, Joseph Hepburn Roustan was living in London, less than an hour away, working for a press agency that functioned as a Nazi front. He remained an ardent, if discreet, supporter of the British Union of Fascists, even as Europe edged closer to war. Her mother, Ella van Heemstra, decided that England no longer felt safe. War seemed imminent, and she believed the Netherlands' neutrality culturally closer to Germany than Britain would be a refuge. Overcoming her bitterness, she contacted her ex-husband and asked him to escort Audrey home. Father and daughter met at Waterloo Station. It was their first encounter since he had walked out years earlier. Audrey later compared it to the railway children, a beloved father reappearing through steam and noise briefly restored. The irony was brutal. This was not a reunion, but a farewell. Hepburn Roustan dutifully put Audrey on a plane. She remembered it as dreamlike, a bright orange aircraft flying low, the world luminous and unreal. That was the last time I saw my father, she said. In retrospect, it was the worst possible decision. Had Audrey remained in England, much suffering might have been avoided, but neutrality still seemed plausible. War felt distant. Audrey, her mother reasoned, would be safer with her. Within months, that illusion collapsed. In Arnhem, Audrey was enrolled in the ballet at the conservatory just before her 10th birthday. Her childhood softness gave way to length and line. Discipline reshaped her body and posture. Ballet taught her scrutiny. Mirrors were for correction, not admiration. Audrey disliked what she saw. She felt awkward and ill-proportioned. But the total effect was something else entirely: composure, economy, and command. In early 1940, as tension mounted, the Sadler's Wells Ballet Company arrived in Arnhem on a morale tour, led by Nanette de Valois, French, with Margaret Fontaine as the principal dancer. Audrey was chosen to present bouquets to them. Fontaine, whom she'd once met backstage in London, became an early role model, not just for movement, but for serenity, discipline, and the musical cadence of speech. That same evening, distant gunfire could be heard across the German border. By the next day, Arnhem was occupied. The second worst memory after my father leaving, Audrey later said, was my mother pulling back the curtains and saying, "Wake up, the war's on." As occupation tightened, life became unpredictable and dangerous. Audrey longed for her father, unaware that back in England he had been arrested under emergency powers aimed at fascist sympathizers. Regulation 18B authorized detention without trial. Figures such as Oswald Mosley were imprisoned. Hepburn Roustan vanished into the system, first Brixton, then camps and prisons, his fate unknown to his daughter.
I hope you all are taking notes here, because this is coming attractions here in the... Woo! Still World War II, baby. Go on.
If I come to America, which I don't plan on doing because fuck that, I have to supply 5 years worth of my social media, like,
handles
now to get
things.
an Esther.
That is buck wild. Listen, your country's not. Listen, I mean, people are a little paranoid about going there too now. So welcome back to history.
Why?
Folks? Well, because you can get arrested for mean tweets. Let's
Nobody's getting arrested for mean tweets.
Okay.
Nobody's getting stabbed in the street either. This is all propaganda.
Okay. Well, there's in both directions. Like, if that is true about social media for 5 years, that is actually buck wild. That is
social media for
crazy.
5 years. Info on like your family, like what they're doing, where they live.
Sure.
10 years worth of email addresses.
I have to go return some videotapes. We'll get Abbie to come to the U.S. We'll go to Deep Ellum in Dallas after dark.
What?
or if you listen to the last After Dark with our filmmaker friend,
Oh, yeah.
remember? Yeah, the shooting in
Yeah, that was
Dallas.
wild.
That's the kind of stuff we keep behind the paywall. Actors getting shot in the face. Oh my God. In any case, Abbie, this is fascinating so far. So her father gets caught up in he was sending some mean tweets.
Oh, yeah. Real mean tweets. Oswald Mosley? You kidding me? Um, while Audrey endured occupation, her father endured incarceration. Each believed the other had chosen safety. The Van Heemstra estate was seized. Valuables were buried at night. English became dangerous to speak. Audrey stopped using her own name, insisting on Ida. German replaced English at school. She felt clumsy, behind, and verbally constrained. Expression migrated into her body. Dance became language. Letters to her grandmother, that's her father's mother, reveal a child trying to outpace despair with effort. Performances, rehearsals, teaching younger girls when formal classes were shut down. When studios closed, Audrey improvised. Windowsills as bars, felt slippers when shoes wore out. She performed secretly in neighbors' homes behind blackout curtains, raising money for the resistance, skimming just enough for her family to survive. She learned early to work through fear. Audrey also saw what fear did to others. At Arnhem Station, she watched Dutch Jews herded into goods wagons, faces pressed to gaps in the wood, a blonde boy swallowed by a coat too big for him. Years later, reading Anne Frank's diary, she refused to portray her on screen. I don't want to profit from a saint, she said of Anne Frank. Her own resistance was quieter but real. She distributed underground leaflets hidden in her shoes. In one confirmed incident, she carried a message to a British parachutist hiding in a nearby woods, singing softly to signal her presence. When stopped by a German patrol, she curtsied and offered flowers as if finishing a ballet. The performance saved her. By 1944, deprivation caught up with her body. Food dwindled to watery soup and improvised bread. She grew rapidly on almost nothing, became anemic, her legs swollen with edema. Dancing stopped. When her uncle was taken by the Gestapo and later executed, something hardened into resolve. If this ever ends, she told herself, I will never complain again. In case it wasn't clear, her mother stopped being a fascist and switched sides.
Started speaking, but still speaking German.
Oh, yeah, because they had to.
Yep. Boy, what a war. Total war.
In September 1944, the Allies attempted to end the war with a single blow. Operation Market Garden, planned by Dwight Eisenhower and Bernard Montgomery. It failed catastrophically. Arnhem was devastated. Civilians were ordered out under threat of execution. Audrey joined nearly 100,000 refugees walking into ruin. Thousands died. She survived again just. In the final months, hiding, jaundiced, starving, she came close to death. Had the war lasted longer, it might have claimed her. What it did claim was her youth. From these years came the traits that the world would later mistake for effortlessness: restraint, gratitude, precision, and an almost preternatural calm. Audrey was spared a long crippling...
May I say, I keep interjecting, but that's the show. May I say, all of this adds up to that performance in Tiffany's, Breakfast at Tiffany's. Like, all of this makes sense. Her musical aptitude, that song was an enormous hit written just for her. Mm-hmm. You know, not a great diva of the opera or anything like that, but an aptitude, that sort of iciness, that sort of alienating iciness, that sense of like being kind of outside looking in. It's like it was very, very well cast, obviously, and now it all makes sense. The ballet, especially, there's something it all tracks in any of it. Okay,
yeah, she's kind of untouchable in a way.
Yeah, she's definitely not the girl next door.
No,
no, she is the anti-girl next door, big time. Yeah, yeah.
Audrey was spared a long, crippling illness, perhaps even death, by an extraordinary coincidence that in retrospect carries a quiet, almost moral symmetry. Before the war, Ella van Heemstra had been close friends with a young Englishman named Michael Byrne, bright, politically engaged, and deeply anti-fascist. In 1939, while Audrey was staying in Elm, Byrne, then stationed nearby, visited at Ella's request to check on the child's well-being. He remembered her as grave, watchful, already unusually self-contained. Soon afterwards, Audrey was abruptly recalled to the Netherlands. Byrne's own fate darkened swiftly. In 1942, he took part in the Allied commando raid on Saint Nazaire, was captured and sent to a concentration camp. Months later, a Red Cross parcel arrived for him, an anomaly and a miracle. Its sender was unnamed. Only after his repatriation did Byrne learn what had happened. Ella had seen a German newsreel depicting the raid as a humiliating failure. As prisoners were marched past the camera, she recognized Byrne instantly. With the help of a Jewish cinema owner, both of them risking their lives, she secretly reran the reel after hours, cut out the frames containing his image, and used them to alert the Red Cross. That fragile chain of recognition and courage resulted in the parcel that kept him alive. After liberation, the exchange of lives became full circle. Audrey lay gravely ill in Amsterdam. Malnourished, jaundiced, her body weakened by years of deprivation. Penicillin, still a rare and closely guarded wonder drug, was unobtainable without vast sums of money. Ella wrote to Byrne in desperation. He responded immediately, sending thousands of English cigarettes, which fetched exorbitant prices on the black market. The penicillin purchased with those cigarettes saved Audrey's life. Years later, Audrey sometimes said that the liberation smelled of English cigarettes. It was assumed she meant the Allied troops flooding the streets. Perhaps she did, but those cigarettes had also bought her survival. In a small but telling way, the incident foreshadowed the humanitarian path she would later walk. She knew what it meant to stand at death's threshold, dependent on unseen generosity. Her recovery was further aided by supplies from the United Nations Relief and Rehabilitation Administration, the forerunner of UNICEF, an organization she would later one day come to embody. Her father, by contrast, emerged from the war hardened and embittered. Detained in Britain under Regulation 18B for his fascist sympathies, he spent years interned, eventually at Perveril Camp on the Isle of Man, isolated, resentful, and convinced of betrayal. Released only weeks before the war's end, he drifted out of Audrey's life almost entirely. Mother and daughter did not pursue him. Survival required forward motion. As Audrey's health returned, so did her dancing. Food remained scarce, money scarcer still, but Ella found work in Amsterdam using her name and connections to fund her daughter's lessons. Ellen trained under Sonia Gaskell, whose modern, unsentimental methods rebuilt her strength and refined her line. Audrey worked relentlessly, driven less by ambition than by gratitude. Work she had learned was safety. Yet one unyielding fact intruded. Audrey had grown tall, nearly 5'7", and in the rigid hierarchies of classical ballet, height was destiny. No amount of discipline could overcome the shortage of suitable partners. When Gaskell left for Paris, Ella made a final pragmatic decision.
Sorry, shortage. It's good writing. I like this slippery little pun in there. The shortage. 5'7" is tall for ballet.
Yeah.
Why? Because the
especially
guys are
at that time,
guys are manlets. Is that it?
Yeah.
Huh. I didn't know that.
I mean,
what, like
men
little
are
jockeys. Jockey types.
Men are not particularly tall in Europe. Yeah. Probably less so men in ballet. And like I'm 5'7", and I would consider myself to be tall for a woman.
I guess
in the 1950s,
my Chad 6'1" height is biasing me here. My corn-fed flyover Midwest trash body is having some cognitive dissonance here. I think we're going to call the episode Euro Brunch at Tiffany's. What do you think? I think we need to be feeding these people. Hey, you Euros out there, go and have a Euro brunch. You need to eat more eggs, poached eggs. No, that's so fascinating. I did not know that. I did not know that there was. I would have assumed height would be an advantage in the ballet, but you're right. You don't want the woman. Ah, if you're a guy, okay. Well, maybe
Yeah.
if this podcast thing doesn't work out, I'll have a second career as a
You're
ballet
you're already
manlet.
you're already past retirement age for ballet.
Listen, it's not over until you're dead, Abby. You can always start over. Get a microphone and start over. All right, cool, interesting. I did not know that. So she gets shut out of the ballet because she gets to be too tall.
She's too tall, yeah.
Oh boy, cool,
Yeah.
bummer.
Because you need to be lifted.
Hoisted in the
And
air and thrown about.
yeah. And
Hmm,
even though she was thin, that's
hmm.
still
Right.
balance,
Awkward. Yeah, and
proportion.
then there's the
Yeah.
stage picture and everything too. And if you don't have partners, I mean,
Yeah.
you are out
And
of
and
luck.
like the point shoes are going to add height to you
Sure.
as well.
Right, and you're on the outside looking in again.
Hmm.
Thinking about Tiffany's. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, when Gaskell left for Paris, Ella made a final pragmatic decision. They would go to London. British citizen, she hoped, might still open doors. In 1947, Audrey was recommended to the Ballet Rambert by Marie Rambert herself. Rambert admired her musicality and commitment, but both teacher and student soon confronted the truth. Ballet demands not only talent and work, but a particular kind of physical inevitability. Audrey had grace, but not destiny. The loss was quietly devastating. She adapted. She modeled, took clerical jobs, danced in London nightclubs. Gradually, almost accidentally, she drifted towards the theatre. Cast by Jack Hylton in high-buttoned shoes, she survived a chorus audition of 3,000 girls and performed alongside Kay Kendall, whose buoyant confidence offered a different model of femininity, playful rather than perfect. Audrey's accent, shaped by a fractured continental upbringing, marked her as an other. Elocution lessons with Felix Aylmer refined her speech without erasing its musicality. She was still limited as an actress, but something else had begun to register. Directors noticed her stillness. Audiences noticed her attention. Review work followed. Sauce tartare and sauce picante. Critics remarked on her ease, her enjoyment, her curious ability to draw the eye without effort. She was photographed by Angus MacBean, whose surrealist portraits revealed a face already composed for the camera. Money came at last, though through exhaustion, through repetition, and with it, independence. When forced to choose between a provincial ballet tour and a musical comedy role, Audrey made the decision without hesitation. She put ballet behind her forever. She was already, quietly, irrevocably entering films.
I think a better episode title is probably Audrey Hepburn, Grace and Destiny. As much as I want
Grace
to,
and Destiny.
yes,
Yeah.
as much as I want to call it Euro Brunch at
It's just
Tiffany's.
yeah, she's not really a funny title
Yeah, yeah, I think she's great.
kind of
That's
gal.
we found our title. Okay, very good. I'm
Okay.
thinking about the pod. This project is bigger than anybody's obsession with Euro Brunch.
Audrey Hepburn's early British film career was brief, marginal, and largely overlooked, yet it proved foundational to the extraordinary rise that followed. Beginning with One Wild Oat in 1950 and ending with The Secret People in 1952, her time working in Britain lasted barely 2 years. Despite later assumptions, Audrey never truly thought of herself as British, even though she held a British passport. She described herself as half Irish, half Dutch, born in Belgium, a remark that captured both her complex identity and her detachment from national labels. Her identification with her father's Irish roots rather than Britain was influenced by his wartime imprisonment by British authorities and his subsequent departure for Ireland, a chapter of his life largely unknown to Audrey at the time. In the early 1950s, Audrey accepted a series of minor film roles while continuing stage work, grateful for the relative security cinema offered and after the instability of theatre. With the support of actress Guji Withers, she secured representation and began appearing in British films, though usually in fleeting, often censored parts. Casting directors and producers repeatedly underestimated her. Even the celebrated filmmaking brothers, John Bootling and Roy Bootling, dismissed her as wrong for the camera, an assessment they would later regret. Her persistence on stage briefly led her to decline a leading role in Laughter in Paradise, directed by Mario Zampi, in favor of touring with a then romantic partner, Marcel Le Bon. When the tour collapsed, she returned to Zampi too late to reclaim the role, instead settling for a 20-second appearance as a cigarette girl. Yet Zampi famously predicted her stardom, a prophecy that soon proved accurate. Further small roles followed, including Young Wives' Tale, a lightweight comedy that embarrassed Audrey when it was released in America after she'd become famous. Casting agents nevertheless recognized her potential. She caught the attention of Michael Balcon during the Lavender Hill mob, where her doe-like appearance made a striking impression, though again, no contract followed.
Doe-like as in a deer, not doughy.
As in a deer.
Yeah, she's like the opposite of doughy.
Female deer.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Neoteny.
The big doe eyes.
Sexual dimorphism and neoteny is what we're talking about here. Yes, very good. Grace and Destiny.
Grace and Destiny. Her real turning point in Britain came through Robert Leonard at Associated British Picture Corporation, who signed her to a 3-year contract on modest terms, an agreement that would later prove financially disastrous for Audrey. Leonard hoped to cast her in The Secret People, a politically ambitious film conceived by director Thorold Dickinson and novelist Joyce Carey. Though initially dropped by cautious studio executives, the project was revived at Ealing Studios under Balcon. Audrey auditioned for the role of Nora, a young refugee dancer, and despite doubts about her height and an initially poor screen test, she ultimately won the part. Observers such as future director Lindsay Anderson noticed her fierce ambition beneath a gentle exterior and recognized her defining quality, an innocence that distinguished her from more experienced performers. Her performance benefited greatly from Dickinson's patient, almost paternal guidance. Filming proved grueling. The ballet sequences demanded exhausting repetition in freezing conditions, revealing a vulnerability that would recur throughout her career. Her emotional freshness could dull with excessive takes. Yet her discipline, resilience, and ability to draw on wartime memories allowed her to deliver moments of genuine emotional power. Dickinson's encouragement to prioritize feeling over technique became formative, teaching Audrey to translate her inner experience directly into performance. Some actors are good in the first few takes when they're being just naturally quite spontaneous, but others like warm up and are better in later takes.
Sure. Right.
So when you're directing ones that are a mix, you have to sort of start planning whose close-ups you're going to film first based on.
Right.
Audrey was one
style.
That. Yeah. Audrey was one that was early. I guess because she had no training.
Right.
So there wasn't like a technique she could draw on. It was all...
right. It was all just sort of like coming out of her life and still acting, but
not a formal acting.
Right. She would have murdered Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah. Or David Fincher.
There you are.
During The Secret People, Audrey absorbed another lesson that would shape her life. Italian actress Valentina Cortez warned her about the dangers of long-term studio contracts and the loss of personal freedom they entailed. Audrey took this advice to heart, becoming one of the earliest stars to insist on strict boundaries between her public image and private life. Although The Secret People itself was flawed and failed to fulfill its promise, Audrey's presence stood out for its freshness and naturalism, especially beside the stylized romanticism of her co-stars. Media attention followed quickly, much to her discomfort. She questioned whether she had earned such a publicity and feared disappointing audiences before she'd truly proven herself, a self-doubt rooted in her upbringing and strong sense of duty. At the same time, her private life attracted scrutiny. She was romantically involved with James Hansen, a wealthy and socially prominent figure. Had circumstances been different, Audrey might have married into a life of privilege and withdrawn from the serious artistic ambition, but her career was accelerating beyond any such possibility. In 1951, Audrey traveled to the south of France to film We Go to Monte Carlo. There, fate intervened in the form of the French writer Colette, who instantly recognized Audrey as the embodiment of her character, Gigi. It's a myth which refuses to die that the French novelist Colette first spotted Audrey filming in the Hotel de Paris, where she was staying as the guest of Prince Rainier, and instantly chose her to play the precocious child woman of her novel, Gigi. In fact, Audrey had caught the fierce eye of this frail-looking but imperious old woman, then in her 70s and a semi-invalid confined to a wheelchair, much earlier. As Colette was being pushed along the seafront by her husband, the writer Maurice Godequet, she saw a skinny girl wearing a one-piece black swimming suit that enhanced the androgyny of her flat-chested form. She was amusing herself with a lively air. She looked impertinent yet curiously innocent. "Voilà, ma Gigi," Colette said to Godequet. "Ah, oui," he replied somewhat warily. The two of them The two of them had spotted quite a few Gigis in recent months, in the parks, boulevards, and department stores of Paris. Ever since the American writer Anita Loos had adapted the novel for stage, Colette had become a compulsive Gigi spotter. She saw the type everywhere, the kind of girl whose simple good nature conquers all avarice, despite the tutoring given by her grandmother and aunt, both great courtesans of their day, in how to hook the young millionaire who is the catch of the season. The trouble was, none of Colette's Gigis were professional actresses. It was strange, she had reflected with some irony, how this of all professions refused to throw up the ideal candidate for such a demanding role. Gilbert Miller, the New York impresario who had bought the adaptation rights in the book, was impatient to stage the play and threatening to exercise his option clause and designate his own choice, should Colette find it impossible to make hers. Colette and her husband were about to enter the main dining hall of the Hotel de Paris later that day when they found it temporarily closed. A film unit was preparing to shoot a scene there, so dinner would be served in the breakfast room. Undeterred, indeed irritated by this interruption to her routine, Colette insisted on complaining to the management and was promptly wheeled into the room, only to be half blinded by arc lights, which emphasized the contrast between the Baroque magnificence of the hotel and the tawdry little comedy being filmed there. Intolerable, she thought, shading her eyes from the lights. But lo, there was her Gigi again. The movement of the wheelchair across her eye line temporarily distracted Audrey from the scene she was shooting. She fluffed her dialogue. Following the look Audrey directed at the interloper, a few minutes later, Boyer was scattering crumbs of information about his film before this tiny, hunched and insatiably curious woman whose rouged cheeks and red hair made her look like a Daumier caricature of tyrannous aristocracy. She ignored him. Her eyes were still fixed on Audrey. Marcel Dalio, the distinguished French character actor who'd been persuaded to appear briefly in the film as himself, in the hope that his celebrity would enhance the production, knew Colette well and introduced her to Audrey. Soon the two of them were making small talk in French. Jean Boyer later confessed that he wished he'd had the nerve to ask Colette to pass through the scene as herself. Both elated and covetous, Colette finally went on her way, like an art collector who had seen a painting in the gallery that she simply must have, particularly as someone else was paying for it. Colette knew that she must have this Gigi. Audrey's mother was next approached and introduced to Colette in the hotel foyer. A conference was arranged and an invitation issued to Audrey by Colette, like a royal command, to play Gigi. Her instinctive reaction was to say, "I can't. I've never acted before. I'm a dancer and have never spoken on stage. Acting? That could be taught." She was assured by the old woman whose heroine, based on Colette herself, had been taught much trickier attainments. Such is the advice: wait for the first-class jewels, hold on Gilbert Miller and Anita Loos over in New York were cabled with the command not to cast their Gigi until Colette's letter arrived nominating the only possible candidate, a girl they had never heard of who had no stage experience in a major production. The letter explained that Audrey would be in London at the beginning of July, free of film commitments, and was desperately eager to play the part on Broadway. This was somewhat stretching the truth. Audrey still flinched from an undertaking which she thought absurdly beyond her talents. Moreover, she wanted to get married to Jimmy Hansen as soon as possible. But the decisive factor was her contract with Associated British, which committed her to make movies for them for the next 3 years and gave them approval over any stage appearances. If they had a role ready for her, she would find herself on a soundstage at Elstree and not a theatre stage on Broadway. She should have been over the moon at Colette's offer. Instead, she was oddly confused and depressed. She felt the power of deciding her own life was being taken from her. In this mood, Audrey did what she would do frequently in the future. She turned for advice to an older man. The 51-year-old fatherly figure, Marcel Delio.
Listen, in the chat in Discord, by the way, artofdarkpod.com/Discord, we have some fun. A couple of friends in there. One says, Hepburn's so good. The other one said, this is Moonglow in Discord, so that was our friend Norvask. And then Moonglow says, she could have fixed me. Get you one like Audrey, because it's so easy. It's that easy.
Or maybe don't use women to fix you.
Right.
Or
right,
vice
maybe,
versa.
Yeah. Maybe,
or vice versa.
Sure. Yeah. Listen. Yeah. You have to, at a certain age, you have to become your own mommy energy. You have to become your own daddy energy. You have to become your own daddy. Okay. And
okay.
Yeah, as the great Liz from Cocteau Twins sang on the final song on the final record, you are a woman just as you are a man. You have to, as a woman, you have to make peace with your animus, and as a man, you have to make peace with your anima. And we're going to be talking about Carl Jung, after Freud. So it's Freud in January, Jung in February. We're going to talk all about it. But in any case, so Audrey, who could have fixed our friend in Discord, is talking to an older man now for advice.
Yeah,
perfectly reasonable.
And she was lacking a father, so perhaps this is
as
why.
Someone, I went through it too. It happens. You want that energy in your life. It can lead to a lot of vulnerability. It makes you vulnerable, but it also makes you very, very, very hungry. And then finally, you have to resolve it for yourself. And as you mature, you have to, again, nobody can fill that hole for you.
No.
You have to fill it for yourself. So, in any event, I'm enjoying this so far, Abbie. This has been very, very surprising. What an interesting life so far. Very strange.
Yeah.
Plenty of darkness. Fashy parents. The Netherlands during World War II, being shut out of ballet because of your own body, being Irish. It's just so much darkness.
I mean, I feel like most people being shut out of ballet, it's something to do with their body.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's not an easy type of dance to.
Very unforgiving. And you do hear, if you speak to people who did even a little bit of ballet as youth, they get that Vietnam stare, that 100-yard stare, like, oh, ballet, So in any event, proceed.
Delio's advice offered Audrey reassurance, if not exactly direction. Follow your instincts. Great advice. This impromptu agony uncle recalls telling her, if it feels right, it will be right. Not much use, though, if it means being sued for breaking your contract. Yet the words entered Audrey's consciousness and by all accounts lodged there for good. It was the philosophy that she trotted out in years to come when an interviewer's questions came a little too close for comfort. It sounded wise, but had a useful vagueness, and the words had another advantage too. She came to believe them. Just as negotiations for Gigi progressed, an even greater opportunity emerged. Paramount Pictures expressed interest in Audrey for Roman Holiday, directed by William Wyler. After a carefully orchestrated screen test designed to capture her unguarded personality, Wyler and Paramount executives were convinced. Her spontaneous charm, humor, and authenticity were undeniable. The screen test still exists. Contrary to Meelan's description, this is a director that had described this test to, I think, the executives in America. It shows a surprisingly podgy Audrey Hepburn, all that French food perhaps during the recent filming on the Côte d'Azur.
Pudgy?
Awakening podgy. I don't think she was ever truly podgy, but not her usual
podgy?
Yeah.
With an O?
Podgy, yeah, Podgy, podgy.
I'm having a Mandela effect moment. I've never heard of podgy. We would say pudgy.
You've never heard podgy?
Podgy? Podgy? Please,
Yeah.
everybody, tell me it's pudgy. It's pudgy. What? It's pudgy in the U.S.
No,
Are you not aware of that?
In the rest of the Anglosphere that drive on the other side of the road, it's podgy.
How is this happening? I don't believe this. How many more of these are there gonna be? Podgy.
It's pudgy penguins, right? Pudgy penguins, not podgy. Okay, enough.
Podgy.
Go on. Podgy. Okay. Maybe I knew that. God. I just keep getting it's the rug pull that is the English language continues.
Yeah.
Mm.
So this screen test features her awakening in the American reporter's otherwise empty bed, stretching in a delightfully kittenish way, throwing out her arms with all the useful innocence of ordinary folk, engaging in conversation with the newsman, played by Lionel Merton, and then moving to the door with all the easy grace of her ballet training as she opens it, turning around and winking like a mischievous elf. "That's it," Paul Stein's voice is heard saying. Audrey hesitates ever so slightly, looks full at the camera, and then an expression of amusement lights up her face as she guesses the deception that is being practiced on her. She is equal to it. "Only one man has the right to say cut," she says, obviously addressing Thorold Dickinson, "and I won't move until I hear him." The camera goes on turning until suddenly she doubles up in helpless laughter. It's a response that's totally unaffected and appealing. "Absolutely charming," Wallace said when he viewed the test in Rome. New York shared that view. "Congratulations. Fine test, Hepburn," ran the cable. "All here think her great." A letter from New York made a few days later made it official. So they'd conceived to do this test where she goes through the motions that they directed her to do, but William Wyler had said to the people in London who were doing the test, keep running the film to see what she does afterwards, because he wanted to see what her personality was like. Spontaneity.
It's a good instinct. Yeah, casting is not a joke. No. Not a joke. And obviously it's a very vulnerable, puts actors in a vulnerable, especially now too. I mean, now that it's, yeah.
Well, and this was for the main role in Roman Holiday. And she was not known to anybody at this time. So it was
big movie.
Yeah. Big movie, big risk casting her.
Yep. Cool. She gets her break.
She gets her break. Below the words Audrey Hepburn, underlined and in red ink, it said, "Exercise the option on this lady. The test is certainly one of the best ever made in Hollywood, New York, or London. Hearty congratulations." Contracts were hastily negotiated. Paramount offered to buy Audrey out of her British obligations, resulting in a complex deal that benefited the studios far more than the actress herself. Audrey was paid what seemed to her a fortune, though it was a fraction of her true value. Still, the opportunity was irreversible. She now stood on the brink of international stardom. As Audrey prepared to leave for New York to begin rehearsals for Gigi, her relationship with Hansen faded under the weight of her commitments. She sailed alone, standing at her cabin portal in the early hours as the New York skyline emerged, unseen in the darkness. It was a quiet, poignant moment that symbolized her transition, dreams fulfilled, sacrifices made, and a future opening faster than she could fully comprehend. Audrey arrived in New York by sea, and almost immediately she was swept into America. Within hours of landing, she was taken to a World Series baseball game, sitting in a vast stadium eating a hot dog, exhilarated by the open space after weeks at sea. She wrote home to her mother in England, where meat was still rationed, marveling at the abundance, the food, all those steaks. But when producer Gilbert Miller finally saw her, delight quickly turned to concern. The fragile, gawky girl he'd left in London had arrived noticeably fuller. After years of wartime deprivation, Audrey had eaten freely on the voyage, a small human rebellion against hunger and anxiety. Miller responded swiftly. The diet returned. Her meals were controlled. Her schedule tightened. Every day she was coached by Kathleen Nesbitt, including weekends. Gigi itself was not yet a musical, but Audrey trained as if it were. She took singing lessons. She drilled her dialogue obsessively. At first, she could barely be heard past the front row. Night after night, she practiced speaking aloud in her room, forcing volume and clarity until finally her voice carried. Even Nesbitt approved, though Miller still hedged his bets. Audrey lacked confidence. To bolster her, publicity photos were arranged with photographers Irving Penn and Richard Avedon. With Avedon, Audrey learned how to manage the camera, how to angle her face, soften what she saw as flaws, and turn self-consciousness into control. That three-quarter profile, head slightly tilted, became part of her visual language. Later, another photographer, Philippe Helsman, would say her face was impossible to pin down, always changing, always escaping the lens. The production's French director, Raymond Rouleau, was unconvinced. He felt Audrey rushed her lines, over-animated her delivery, and relied on technique instead of feeling. Rehearsals were rocky. At the same time, Audrey's private life was unsteady. She was still seeing her fiancé, James Hansen, and insisted she wanted marriage, but postponing it again and again. According to Rouleau's widow, the first week of rehearsals was disastrous. Audrey went out late, arrived exhausted, and struggled badly. He finally confronted her. Something shifted. She pulled back from nightlife, from Hansen, from distraction. A new Audrey appeared, disciplined, focused, frightened, but determined. By the time the show reached its out-of-town tryouts in Philadelphia, Audrey was visibly strained. She had dark circles under her eyes. She was terrified. Actor David Niven, who was also opening a Broadway play nearby, remembered the two of them shaking with fear as opening night approached. The reviews were mixed, except about Audrey. Critics fell in love with her. They described her as candid, tomboyish, athletic, fresh, and electric. She ran, shouted, slammed doors, and bounded through the set without ever knocking anything over. One critic likened her to a child bowling a hoop with unstoppable energy. No one seemed to notice she was 23. She radiated youth. But not everyone agreed. Noel Coward later dismissed the production as overacted and badly directed, calling Audrey inexperienced and too noisy. The truth probably lay somewhere in between. The play was flawed. Audrey was still learning, but on opening night, her presence eclipsed the weaknesses around her. Within days, the theater marquee changed from Gigi with Audrey Hepburn to Audrey Hepburn, Gigi. Audrey was ecstatic and polite as ever. She wrote thank you notes. She signed her name modestly. And then came the come down. Stardom, she discovered, was not champagne and open tables. It was press, exposure, a feeling that everything depended on you, and that freedom quietly disappeared. Her engagement to James Hansen faltered. His photograph vanished from her dressing room. Though the engagement was officially announced in the Times, Audrey herself seemed uncertain, caught between romance and a life that was accelerating beyond anything she imagined. At the same time, Hollywood was preparing her next transformation. Paramount placed her under strict supervision, diet, beauty, posture, shaping the body that would soon become iconic. During Gigi, she met costume designer Edith Head to plan Roman Holiday. Together, they created not just Princess Anne, but Audrey's everyday style. simple shirts, flared skirts, flat shoes, clothes that felt honest, youthful, and replicable. Gigi,
Abbie, I beg your pardon. You're into Act Two now, obviously. Very happy she got her break. Very happy she's getting to eat some steaks once in a while. Maybe some
well,
petit
not
filet
anymore.
mignon. Right. Well, she's not having T-bones, but I think she's probably, no more Euro brunch. She's moved on to American brunch, which we do very well. So this style, this would have obviously been influenced by Chanel. Yes. Or is it too late or too early?
I mean, it's roughly around the same time, but the style that so Roman Holiday is about a princess who is feeling constricted by the life of royalty, and when she's in Rome on a European tour, she's a European princess. I think she's supposed to be Dutch. She escapes at nighttime, ends up I think she'd been given sleeping pills or something, but they didn't quite take. She ends up accidentally in the apartment of an American reporter, and then he recognizes her but pretends that he doesn't, and him and a photographer take her on a little tour around Rome where she does ordinary things. She gets her hair cut, she wears ordinary clothes, and they take all these like secret photos of her doing these things, which they later give to her. But the clothes that she was wearing when she's just being an ordinary woman, they became quite iconic and replicated during the 1950s. But I wouldn't say they're Chanel style clothes.
Gotcha.
They are in that they're not restrictive, but I would say Chanel was starting to get rid of like corsets and things in like the 1920s. And the clothes that Audrey Hepburn is wearing in Roman Holiday is like little short sleeve shirts with like flared midi skirts and like a belt around the waist. And because she's so skinny, like it has quite an effect.
Is it Cary? Who's in Roman Holiday? Is it Cary Grant that she plays against?
No, it's Gregory Peck.
Gregory Peck. Okay. All right. I'm sure I've seen it, but it's been a while. It's one of those classic. Doesn't she end up splashing around in the fountain?
Yeah.
We love that.
Yeah, it's
we
like,
love that.
and it was well, we'll get into it, but it was shot on location in Rome, which is something that wasn't really done at the time, and
Sure. Probably taking advantage of the strength of the dollar, but then also obviously Rome is the eternal city. So I think I'm going later this year. I'm going to take a trip to Rome. If anybody wants to get in the Discord, we've got a travel chat there. Tell me what I shouldn't do in Rome. I'm going to go splash around in the fountain.
I don't think you're allowed to do that.
Probably not advisable. Cool. Well, fascinating. Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you, Abbie. Thanks for answering my question.
You're welcome. So Gigi ran for 217 performances and it closed in May 1952. Audrey left the theatre no longer a hopeful unknown, but not yet at ease with what she had become. She was famous, she was adored, and she was still learning to live inside that light. But for the agreement which Gilbert Miller had made with Paramount to release Audrey as soon as Roman Holiday was ready to go, Gigi could have run indefinitely. Audrey had no time to rest between the play and the film, only a few hours in her hotel between the final curtain and the scheduled time of her TWA Constellation to Rome. She arrived showing the strain of what lay ahead and was hustled through an airport press conference that provided her with her first experience of how intrusive the media could be. The Broadway press had been gentlefolk compared to Rome's predators. She was 23, wasn't she? Why wasn't she married? Why were they waiting? Did they not love each other enough?
Based. This is where paparazzi's, and it's an Italian word. You tomato people are relentless. There's no stoic long winters for you meds. You're going to go hard at her. Okay. Why aren't you married? You're 23. You're going to be a thornback. You're already a spinster. Soon you're going to be a thornback. Audrey Hepburn. Go on.
What was that accent?
I have that was my generic. The way she had a generic Euro aristocrat accent, I have a generic Eurotrash accent.
Sounded very like Eastern European.
Oh, we have fun on Art of Darkness. Go on, Abbie. Go on. I'm sure people are loving this. I am. It's fascinating.
Audrey had suggested to her fiance that they should postpone the wedding until she finished filming and before she started the tour of Gigi. This decision was now weighing on her conscience, which, with each step she took into the world of stardom, it seemed she took two or more back from the altar. She was learning about the incompatibility of fame and personal happiness, but not yet wanting to admit it. The same evening, Audrey met the star of the film, Gregory Peck. Like her, he had not been William Wyler's first choice. Cary Grant had been sent the script originally and had turned it down, as he so frequently did, often on irrational grounds or none at all that he would admit to. So self-possessed and relaxed on screen, Grant was in reality extremely pernickety, and though the list of films he made is distinguished, an alternative list of great movies he did not make or pulled out of would be nearly as long. He rejected Roman Holiday because he knew the center of attention would be the girl. Gregory Peck was then 36. A star since Hitchcock's Spellbound in 1945, his 6-foot physique and forthright manner radiated moral and physical strength. Any role he played collected around it an air of reliability and integrity. He was perfect casting for many Hollywood genres: westerns, suspense mysteries, romantic dramas, social melodramas, war sagas, and even religious epics. He was almost too good to be true. Popular with fellow stars, generous to newcomers, Audrey could not have found a better godfather. He was also unhappily married, a fact he was trying to live with, as stars used to do in the days before the phenomenon of celebrities killed the fear of scandal. Like Cary Grant, he had initially been reluctant to play the role of the reporter, and much for the same reason. William Wyler skillfully overcame his reluctance by delivering a reproach that itself was a compliment. I don't think you need to measure the length of a part. Peck recognized the quality of the script, and when he met Audrey at an introductory party at the Excelsior Hotel, he recognized hers just as quickly. He took her small hand in his large one, felt shyness in her modest grasp, and said in playful rehearsals for their roles, "Your Royal Highness." She replied, "I hope I don't let you down." Unknown to anyone else, William Wyler had to quieten Audrey's nerves, which were in such a poor state on her arrival in Rome. She had learned that Wyler's heart had been set on Gene Simmons, who was already a star of the first rank. But Simmons was under exclusive contract to Howard Hughes, the reclusive millionaire, who refused to release her or even discuss a loan out. This disappointment had almost made Wyler decide to cancel the film. Thus, Audrey was well aware that she was stepping into shoes that some other princess might have filled. It had been decided to shoot the entire film in Rome. Location filming was not yet commonplace even in major Hollywood films, and the rarity of this event was thought important enough to be stated explicitly in the credits. But Wyler had not reckoned on the very special hell that Rome became in the summer. That is true. Rome is very hot in the summer, and probably more so now than it used to be. The summer of 1952 was one of the hottest on record, and the humidity turned the city into a steam bath. The excitement of seeing a movie being shot in the streets at the height of the tourist season made it a stop-start event and a personal ordeal for Peck in particular, the only high visibility star in the cast. Filming frequently had to be halted as Romans and visitors closed in on the very tourist sites that the newsmen and the absconding princess were supposed to be enjoying at leisure and unrecognized. The script deftly projected the princess's discovery of the joys of life. The freshness Audrey brought to it made it seem as if she too were tasting them for the first time. She conveyed royalty's delight in a novel of not being recognized. The freedom felt by a sheltered girl suddenly able to go wherever she wants. The exhilarating disobedience of nibbling an ice cream in the street, and most happily for Audrey's own future image, the sinful fun of having the hairdo that was intended to support a tiara chopped down by a barber to the length and raggedness of a happy-go-lucky gamine. When Audrey wanders the streets in the incognito princess, swinging her body and tasting the simple pleasures of the people, one realizes that this is a star taking her first outing too. Neither she nor Princess Anne would ever again be so innocently happy. There is a complete identity between the role and the performer. What Anne does is very simple, but because one is aware of her true identity, her smallest action, her least reflex of joy is charged with interest. And the fact that Peck's cameraman, played by Eddie Albert, is secretly sneaking candid shots of Her Royal Highness imparts suspense to the most routine event. All of this depends on the realism of the setting, the weather, and the time of day or night, the noises of the passing world. All things hard enough to control anywhere, but next to impossible in Rome. Making Roman holiday was no holiday for anyone. The city seemed to have been designed to test a filmmaker's patience to destruction point. Streets had to be closed off, traffic diverted, public monuments roped off to the irritation of tourists, and bribes liberally distributed to anyone in so-called authority, which usually waned as the day wore on. Because all of these arrangements were so troublesome, Wyler was limited to a small amount of takes for each scene. For Audrey, that was a godsend. Wyler was well known to be demanding, insisting actors repeat their scenes over and over again. Had Roman Holiday been shot in a studio, his demands could have been devastating to the morale and even the art of a performer like Audrey, who was at her best in the first few takes. As it was, Wyler had to snatch the effect he wanted on the run, so to speak, which suited Audrey perfectly. Moreover, the film was being shot in black and white. Color would have been too costly in those days when the film stock needed the controlled conditions not available on every street corner or piazza in Rome. Again, this was an advantage. It avoids the sense of a travelogue prettiness that color might have imparted. As it is, one can stop the film at any point, and the frame looks like a magazine layout, candid, immediate, realistic. To the masses of American film goers, the landmarks visited by Audrey Hepburn and Gregory Peck were still unfamiliar in the 1950s. De Sica's Bicycle Thieves was the only location picture to have been shown in the United States before the release of Roman Holiday. Those Americans who did recognize Rome were the U.S. servicemen who'd marched into the open city at the end of the war. For them, it was a return trip with nostalgia in their eyes now, not victory. These were perhaps unpremeditated events contributing to the film's freshness, but Audrey Hepburn was undoubtedly its greatest asset. Remembering the lessons of the secret people, she conserved her energy, spoke to barely a soul, sipped only a single glass of champagne at lunch, and retreated into herself before going in front of the camera, so as to touch the real emotion and forget the need to act, trusting all the time that the camera would catch the truth. Invariably it did. The motor scooter ride with Peck that lasts only a few minutes actually took 6 days to shoot, yet no sign of the endless disruptions appears on screen. Everything is easy, natural, joyful, and touching.
I didn't realize this was one of the first big location films. I mean, now you take that for granted, right? You have in Bruges, right? Bruges is a character. Fargo.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the way it's done now.
Everything would have been done in a studio at the time.
Yeah, studios. Yeah. Interesting. I still love those old studio movies. You know, A White Christmas, and they don't try to fool you. I mean,
no.
you're not fooled. It's like a painting. Yeah. Yeah. Even Kubrick with Eyes Wide Shut. I remember before everybody caught up to me and realized Eyes Wide Shut is an unmitigated masterpiece for which Stanley was probably killed by the satanic pedophiles who control the world with our tax dollars. But I remember a complaint someone levied against that film was like, that doesn't look like Manhattan. I'm like, it's a sexual fantasia. It's a kind of dream happening. The novella upon which it is based is called Traumnovelle, dream story. Okay? It's a film. Okay? Okay. Enough. Enough with your Philistinism. Even like Naked, my one of my favorite English films, Naked. Just London is a character in that film.
Hmm.
So cool. Learning, always learning on Art of Darkness.
Always learning.
Hmm. Is she suffering from any of the the uncouth forward advances of the sharks in Hollywood, or is she more touched as a star right away and it's sort of hands off? She comes from a different milieu
Yeah.
than someone
Uh,
like
of what
Marilyn.
I've read, there isn't really a lot of predatory behavior surrounding her from what I've read. I think she radiated this sort of innocence that made her, I don't know.
It
There was
seems like she
just
went
something
from
about
zero to
Audrey that,
star. She didn't need to
yeah.
to gobble her way onto the stage and screen, as it
Mm.
were. And there's a
There
famous
was
thing that
always
Monroe
something
said. Yeah,
aristocratic about her that, I
right.
mean, and she comes
Probably
from aristocratic stock, so yeah,
maybe
but
protected her a little bit. Yeah, that class element of this is not very often
hmm.
acknowledged. There's a power dynamic in class which Americans are extremely uncomfortable talking about because we are class blind, willfully class blind, as we're being robbed blind by an international cartel of satanic pedophiles. Eyes Wide Shut is a documentary. I gotta listen. I didn't watch my favorite Christmas movie, Eyes Wide Shut, over the holidays. You know what I'm gonna do tonight? I'm watching Eyes Wide Shut. I'm gonna force my better half
Good
to
for you.
watch Eyes Wide Shut with me. We've been rewatching Seinfeld. We're gonna take a
Oh yeah,
detour. Oh God, Seinfeld. It's just the best. Laugh out loud funny.
it's very good.
The best. Go on, Abby.
Several times during shooting, James Hansen flew over to Rome in the hope of persuading Audrey to commit herself to a wedding date. A photo spread in Look magazine had Hansen exclaiming, "By George," as he watched her having her gamine haircut elevated with a false hairpiece to hold a tiara for the poor little princess seen at the embassy ball.
Synchronicity. Stanley Kubrick was a photographer for Look magazine, famously. Go. Yeah.
Um, Anticipating events, Look's caption writer added in brackets that suggest a certain stop press anxiety. They were married last month, only they weren't. Audrey and her fiance finally set the wedding date for the 30th of September 1952. 200 guests were invited to the ceremony in a parish church. It was to be the event of the year in Huddersfield. Huddersfield. Sharon Douglas, daughter of the then American ambassador, Lewis Douglas, agreed to be a bridesmaid. The presents had already begun to arrive when the ceremony had to be abruptly cancelled. Roman Holiday was overrunning its shooting schedule. On the morning of what should have been his wedding day, Hansen found himself at Northolt Airport, London, waiting for his fiancée to arrive from Rome. They had 4 hours together in town before flying on to New York. The wedding dress, which Audrey had had made in Rome, travelled with them. She hardly had time to try it on and reflect how she might look as Mrs. James Hansen before Gilbert Miller whisked her off in a limousine to a West Side rehearsal room for a refresher course as Gigi. Before the week was out, she'd left on tour with the play. No new date was fixed for the wedding. Hansen left to attend family business in Toronto. If the couple were as much in love as they professed to be, it seems strange that they would not just get married on American or Canadian soil. Before leaving London, they had emphasized to the press that there was no tiff between us. We expect to be married in the next 3 months. Hansen added, "We shall make our home in New York, London, and Ontario, where I have business interests." It didn't seem to occur to him that this added up to 3 homes. Here was a symptom of something far more serious than a lover's tiff. Whether or not either was willing to acknowledge it publicly or privately, a rift had begun to open between them, caused by Audrey's reluctant recognition that if this was what life was like when they were not married, it was unlikely to get much better when they were. Putting it another way, she was now rather more in love with her career than she was with her fiancé, and it appears she had no wish to sacrifice it for him. Marrying an actress, not easy.
Yeah, trying to take someone like her to Toronto doesn't always,
Ontario
doesn't always,
or
doesn't always work out. I hear Toronto's an actor I once knew in London said Toronto is like New York for Mormons. That's what he said. I've never been to Toronto. I'd like to visit. It's a big city. It's like 5 million
I would
people.
like to visit. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm down to see Toronto sometime. Go see a hockey game. You know, go Ed Hortons. Is it Ed Hortons? Get a donut. Shout out to our Leafs out there. So I don't know. Toronto, take the Toronto pill. He wants to live in Toronto, New York, and London.
London, Ontario, I
Yeah,
think. Yeah.
Toronto. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's like, it's not going to work. Yeah, and she's going to be an independent woman. She's
Yeah.
the center of the universe now. Huh. Okay. All right. So she breaks it off, huh?
Well, yeah, eventually she and Hanson admitted what that had become unavoidable. She was more in love with her work than the life marriage required. They parted gently as friends.
It can be done.
Yeah. The media did not respond gently. A broken engagement intensified public fascination. Gossip filled the gap between Audrey, the woman, and Audrey, the characters she played. The unmarried princess, the marriageable Gigi. Rumor followed her everywhere. Even Gregory Peck's failing marriage was briefly unfairly linked to her. Audrey was shocked to learn how easily praise could be twisted into implication. She learned quickly from then on that her interviews became careful and controlled. So Gregory Peck's marriage was on the fritz, and the media was accusing Audrey of having an affair with him because she had said that she had praised him as a co-star in an interview.
Aha. Yeah, yeah. The fear of an unwed superstar in the period. Yeah, she's a ticking bomb. What could go wrong? Yeah, and the fascination of, because of course 25, 27, 30, 30.
Well, she's not quite 30 yet.
No, but
She's
you
still,
understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes fast.
It does go fast.
Yeah, standards have changed.
Yeah. At this point in her career, nothing was guaranteed. Her earlier film, The Secret People, had been poorly received in Britain. Roman Holiday was slow to reach cinemas. Paramount briefly struggled to keep her name in circulation. Then Wyler screened a rough cut. He knew immediately the world would fall in love with her. Before Roman Holiday was even released, the studio prepared her next film, Sabrina, a modern fairy tale. Audrey instinctively understood its power and insisted on shaping how she would be seen. For Sabrina, she made a decisive choice. Against studio preference, she insisted on working with a young French designer for her clothes. His name was Hubert de Givenchy. When they met in Paris, something clicked. Givenchy saw in Audrey the perfect embodiment of his aesthetic: clean, minimal, precise, and alive. Audrey saw in Givenchy a mirror of who she could become. Their partnership would define her image forever. Around the same time, Audrey saw a film called Lily, starring Leslie Caron. She admired it deeply, particularly its male lead, Mal Ferreira. When she later met him, the attraction was immediate. Ferreira was older, brilliant, restless, multilingual, and intense, a man of ideas, a man who seemed to Audrey like a fairy tale prince with shadows. Their meeting was brief. Life intervened, but something had been set in motion. Audrey flew on to Hollywood to begin Sabrina, carrying with her a new understanding of herself. She was no longer drifting into fame, she was choosing it. I believe Sabrina was based on the play Sabrina Fair. Yeah.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it?
Never heard of it.
Well, you're about to hear a little bit about it.
We're going to hear. So I like this. She lives right at that cusp between theater and film too, that's a period that I really enjoy.
Well, I mean, we talk at the moment in the industry about Hollywood's obsession with IP, but Hollywood's always made films that were based on books. It's just that they were not books that we would ever read now or ever heard of. They were very little known books. not like the classics.
Every script Kubrick, every original Kubrick that was wholly his own was from some kind of source material.
It seems to be in like the 80s and 90s that we had original films. I mean, unless something was an auteur-led project.
Yeah, this is part of the reason that the writers we cover in this very literary podcast from that period could sell a short story and then go and buy a villa in the south of France for a box of raspberries, and they're advanced for the next novel. because the dollar was strong, and if you had a hot short story in the New Yorker, a hot short story in the New Yorker, you'd get an advance on your novel, right? And in today's dollars, it would be like $200,000 because the rights would sell. Every short story Fitzgerald wrote, the rights would sell for, to Hollywood. Somebody would option it for something. Yeah, it's just a different flavor. Cape shit is eating everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boo.
Boo.
Boo. Cape shit. No good. All right.
In mid-June 1953, Britain found itself gripped by a story that felt almost too perfectly timed. Princess Margaret, the Queen's younger sister, was openly in love with a divorced man, Peter Townsend, and wanted to marry him. In that era, this wasn't romantic rebellion, it was a constitutional crisis. Within weeks, Margaret was hurried out of the country on a long tour of Rhodesia, and Townsend was quietly posted abroad to Brussels. Distance, it was hoped, would cool desire. It didn't, but it did create a story the public couldn't look away from. And almost uncannily, that story became a kind of rehearsal for Roman Holiday, which was due to open at the end of August. Here was a real princess in love with a commoner, thwarted by duty and tradition, and here on screen was a fictional one, Princess Anne living out the same dilemma, just with gelato and a Vespa. No studio could have bought publicity like this. The lines between reality and fantasy blurred beautifully. The public was invited to imagine that Roman Holiday wasn't just a film, but a glimpse behind Buckingham Palace's curtains. Paramount leaned into it, gently, plausibly, never quite claiming the connection, but allowing the impression to flourish. It was nonsense, of course, but nonsense is the lifeblood of publicity. While all this was unfolding, Audrey was still in London. The American press had began buzzing months earlier, but the British papers were slower, more cautious. Audrey, exhausted after Roman Holiday, refused to return to Hollywood before starting Sabrina. She needed rest, she said, and she was right. This caused a problem. The American fan magazines were desperate to get to her. In those pre-jet, pre-satellite days, distance still mattered, so Paramount improvised. Modern Screen recorded its interview questions onto wire, flew the recording to London, and Audrey taped her answers back. It was proudly billed as the first fan magazine interview of its kind. Asked about marriage, always the first question, Audrey simply replied, "One day I'll just fall in love and get married, career or no career." The magazine's writer noted something else too. Audrey seemed self-reliant, ambitious, and deeply capable of love, but conspicuously silent about her father. Writers would continue to tiptoe around this absence, inventing vague stories of disappearance or death. Almost no one mentioned his fascist affiliations. One journalist did, briefly, and then the subject vanished again. Hollywood, after all, was very good at protecting its investments. Audrey, for her part, was already learning how to deflect. In an interview with Hedda Hopper, when asked about her birth, she began, "I was born," and then smoothly changed the subject, complimenting a magazine cover on a wall. Hopper took the bait. Audrey escaped. By early 1953, she was on the cover of Time magazine, before her first major American release had even properly opened. The illustration showed her as a princess in full regalia, Rome behind her, temptation symbolized by an absurdly large strawberry ice cream cone. The message was clear: dignity and desire, duty and freedom. The article inside was rapturous. Critics praised how her princess seemed to grow up in a single day and night, from truant schoolgirl to a woman who understands the cost of love. Roman Holiday opened in New York and London at the end of August. Audrey skipped both premieres, choosing instead to attend a screening at the Venice Film Festival, a quiet nod to the country that had given her the role of her life. When she returned to America, she found herself famous and not elated by it. If anything, she felt intimidated. Expectations had doubled overnight. One studio executive predicted she might be the greatest actress the screen had ever seen. Instead of delight, Audrey felt the familiar tightening of conscience. Success for her came with obligation. You could never feel tired again, and you could never stop. Ironically, the one place Roman Holiday underperformed was with the American box office. Abroad, it was adored. Europe embraced its melancholy ending, The Lovers Who Don't End Up Together. Ingrid Bergman reportedly wept when she saw it. British audiences, caught up in Princess Margaret's real-life heartbreak, flocked to the cinemas. By then, Italy itself had become fashionable. Scooters, espresso bars, sharp tailoring, and Audrey's Rome felt like freedom incarnate. Back in Los Angeles, Paramount began shaping her image in earnest. She moved into a small apartment near Westwood. Life magazine ran a photo spread asking, "What makes Audrey's charm?" Their answer was contradiction: waif and woman, friendly and aloof, independent, solitary. Romance was notably absent. For Sabrina, Audrey was paid just $15,000. When told she might have earned more by waiting, she replied, "The important thing is not money, but being a good actress," a statement Hollywood didn't quite know how to process. The making of Sabrina itself was chaos. Scripts were rewritten overnight, scenes arrived at dawn, director Billy Wilder and writer Ernest Lehman worked under constant panic. And then there was Humphrey Bogart. Bogart resented the film, resented his role, and resented Audrey most of all, sensing correctly that the camera loved her. He mocked her voice, drank on set, and bristled whenever close-ups favored her face. Wilder fought back viciously and memorably. Audrey endured it quietly. Off-screen, she began a discreet affair with William Holden. Tender, romantic, doomed. He was married. She was conflicted. It had the texture of a Sabrina scene itself. Ballet music, moonlight, longing without future. On screen, Audrey's innocence remained intact. In Sabrina, she plays a woman transformed by Paris, by men, by attention, yet untouched and morally unsullied. It was a delicate illusion, one that writers and directors would spend the rest of her career trying to sustain. She could reach for the moon, but never quite for the money. And in that balance, desire without possession, freedom edged with restraint, Audrey Hepburn became not just a star, but a symbol. The phone rang in Audrey's Beverly Hills apartment. It was the last day of filming Sabrina. She'd come home exhausted when she heard the voice on the other end of the line, Jean Simmons. Audrey stiffened. Jean was the actress who would have played Princess Anne in Roman Holiday if Howard Hughes had allowed her out of her contract. Instead, Jean said simply, "I've just seen Roman Holiday, and although I wanted to hate you, I have to tell you, I wouldn't have been half as good. You were wonderful." It meant everything. A genuine friendship formed quickly, with Jean and her husband Stuart Granger. They became Audrey's first real friends in Hollywood. She spent quiet mornings at their house, lying by the pool, rarely swimming. She disliked it, conserving herself as she always did. At this point, Audrey lived lightly. She didn't drive, she bicycled. Beverly Hills was quieter back then and safer. A young star paddling past in pink pedal pushers and a knotted shirt caused little stir. She smoked discreetly, rode her bike, owned almost nothing. From Sabrina, she bought just one Givenchy dress. "It's worn," she said, "but to me it looks divine." Divine became one of her favorite words, elegant, non-committal, and protective. Despite the anticipation around Sabrina, Audrey lived almost nomadically. Romance was speculated about, but never scandalized. Her affair with William Holden had ended quietly. She valued her independence and refused to destroy another woman's marriage. When asked about love, she admitted carefully how unhappy she had been since her broken engagement, while insisting it had been the right decision. Work, she believed, was safer than marriage, and yet it was through work that her life changed. Before starting Sabrina, Audrey had told Mel Ferreira that she would like to do a play with him one day. Now, at the end of 1953, he appeared in Los Angeles with a play in hand, Ondine, a fairy tale about a water nymph who leaves her world for love and pays the price. Audrey needed no persuasion. She exercised a clause in her Paramount contract allowing her to appear on stage and move to New York. Undine became not just a role but a crucible. Audrey controlled every detail: costume, movement, makeup, shaping a presence that was unearthly, balletic, and utterly hers. The now legendary fishnet costume was her own idea, inspired by childhood storybooks. When the director Alfred Lunt insisted she dyed her hair blonde, she refused. "This is mythology," she said. "Logic has nothing to do with it." On opening night, nerves nearly undid her. She worried about everything: her body, her costume, the pace, Mel. But when the curtain rose, the fear vanished. Critics were divided on the play: too ornate, too heavy, but on Audrey they agreed she was magical. Behind the scenes, she was not well. 8 performances a week took their toll. She lost weight. Her asthma returned. Doctors waited in the wings. Friends whispered about exhaustion, about breakdown, and Audrey grew increasingly dependent on Mel, emotionally, practically, professionally. Some admired his protectiveness, others suspected control. When Roman Holiday won her an Academy Award nomination, then the Oscar itself, the triumph did not exhilarate her. Praise weighed on her. It always had. Success felt like obligation. On the 25th of March, 1954, still half dressed in her Undine costume, she was rushed from the theater to accept her Oscar. She won, beating Ava Gardner, Deborah Kerr, and most poignantly, Leslie Caron. She smiled, she thanked, she didn't sleep, and then she collapsed. Undine closed early. A promised musical was cancelled. Audrey fled to Switzerland to recover, thin, pale, determined to escape attention. And even there, she was recognized. Photographs in shop windows, her film in the local cinema. There was no refuge. At the end of her tether, she called Mel. He arranged a secluded hotel above Lake Lucerne. Guards, no phones, regular meals, early nights. Slowly her body recovered, and in that stillness she made her decision. Marriage, she decided, would allow her to be a woman and still have a career, so she accepted Mel Ferreira. They married in September 1954 in a small Swiss church, guarded by police, the doors locked against the press. Audrey wore white organdy, carried a prayer book, and held herself carefully together. Afterward, they fled, first into hiding, then into Italy, pursued relentlessly by photographers. It was her first lesson in how marriage magnified fame. Privacy, she now understood, would have to be defended. That resolve hardened soon after when a private wedding photograph, shared only with family, appeared in a German magazine leaked by her own grandmother. Audrey was devastated. She wrote a restrained but severe letter insisting on boundaries. It was painful, perhaps excessive, but it marked something new. Audrey Hepburn was no longer simply reacting to fame. She was learning to control it.
Yeah, she's got to be one of the most famous people in the world. Hemingway couldn't go out in public in Spain. You know, he wanted to go to a bullfight. He'd be mobbed. It's like Elvis. Crazy. Yep.
Yep.
I mean, listen, you've been on Art of Darkness for a year. You can't go anywhere in London now. It is, yeah. Listen,
I was recognized once.
The people who know this show are the people who matter. That's a fact. That's a shout out to all y'all, all of you, especially the ones that are still listening from way back.
Have you ever been recognized?
No, I've never. Yes, actually. Yeah. There was a family friend, and better half comes to me and goes, My friend's husband knows who you are, I'm like, oh yeah, good. Yeah. How's the bank account look? It doesn't, like, notoriety does not necessarily mean the same thing as it used to. But it's always flattering. But I mean, it's not. You obviously don't start a niche arts history biography podcast for the fame. Needless to say, but we appreciate y'all. We do numbers. We do numbers. Yeah, it's not. We don't do Rogan numbers yet. Matter of time. I'm gonna start ripping bong hits on season 6. try to fit in with this culture. Whoa, dude. Carl Jung said that. All right. This is good, Abby. I'm fascinated by this. She's living a hell of a life, man.
Yeah.
I saw a funny meme and it's Kanye. It's like Kanye in his kind of polo era, and it
Yeah.
says,
The backpack
"I
Kanye.
yeah," and I said, it says, I think I'm the Kanye West of my family." I'm like, ooh, Yeezy taught me. All right, keep on keeping on.
Okay. Audrey recovered her health under Mel's careful and often firm supervision. He could be a disciplinarian. When she asked for a bedtime whiskey, he would say gently but decisively, "No, darling, milk." I had not mentioned that he'd been married 3 times previous. I think twice to the same woman.
That's a lot of
And
that's a lot of marriages.
it's yeah, and it's a little bit of an age gap as well. I think he was like
Hmm.
37.
It's an age gap for Audrey.
Yeah.
Age gap. Mark the card. So what? She's 24, 25.
She's like, yeah, 24, 25. He's 37.
Eh, she's an adult. He's
Yeah.
yeah,
At the
he's a man
time it was
child.
probably
I
quite,
mean,
you
it's
know.
not that it's even now. I mean, people will even now. I mean, it's just among real people who aren't terminally online, you know. In any event.
Yeah.
True love on the fourth try.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, we'll find out, won't we?
Yeah. There was at least comfort in the rhythms of a domestic life. Their villa was well supplied, nearby farms delivered meat and eggs, vegetables came from the landlord's garden, grapes hung heavy on their own vines. Audrey taught her Italian cook how to make ham and eggs and hash browns American style. In return, she learned simple Italian peasant dishes. Pasta became a staple, something Audrey would cook for others all her life. "It puts meat on your bones," she'd say approvingly. Fish from the Roman markets cooked with rice, saffron, asparagus. This was the regime that restored her strength. As her worries eased, so did her periods of anorexia. She baked her own bread after lessons from the village baker, and then, to her delight, she became pregnant. Home, family, childhood. These were all the things the war had stolen, and now they were what she wanted most. Audrey always retained something childlike, not naive but open. She approached life like a wise child playing a game whose rules she partly understood, partly trusted. Her own childhood had been fractured by divorce and war, and she never quite stopped trying to make up for it. From that came both her trust in people and a lingering apprehension that happiness might vanish without warning. It was this mixture, hope tempered by caution, that endeared her to others. She tied people to her with small knots of affection. Friends felt it, even strangers sensed it. But domestic happiness didn't erase practical problems. Money was tight. Despite her meteoric rise, Audrey had been paid very little relative to her fame. Ondine earned her more than Sabrina, but fees were eaten away by agents, lawyers, studio cuts, and taxes. Mel was working. They planned to live on his income while Audrey waited for the baby. But the family required security and quickly. It was during this precarious calm that visitors arrived. The British filmmakers Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger. They admired Audrey's intelligence and elegance, though Powell would later remark with characteristic dryness that she was the right shape for that year. They proposed filming Ondine, reinvented as a modern magical dance film in the spirit of the Red Shoes. The idea was dazzling: underwater sequences, technicolor fantasy, Audrey as a glittering water nymph, Mel as a modern diver. But Powell sensed resistance. Audrey and Mel were deeply attached to their stage version, the play that had brought them together. Privately, doubts multiplied. Audrey was uneasy in water. Mel was increasingly protective of creative control. Powell suspected that decisions were being quietly strategized behind closed doors. The collaboration soured and the project collapsed. Meanwhile, offers flooded in, and Audrey declined them all. Some would later prove to be narrow escapes. She was pregnant, she wanted stillness. She and Mel set up their own production company in an early assertion of control and of distrust towards studios that Mel believed had exploited her. Publicly, Audrey's star only rose higher. Sabrina opened to enormous success. Critics adored her, and even then, perceptive voices noted something true. She was not easy to cast. She wasn't built for the standard Hollywood categories. She wasn't overtly sexual. She wasn't bubbly or knowing. She embodied something rarer, grace without stiffness, innocence without stupidity, strength disguised as fragility. Her vulnerability became her defense. Audrey looked as though life itself would protect her, and audiences wanted to believe that it would. Her image crystallized quickly. The haircut, the eyes, the voice. Photographers like Cecil Beaton dissected her features clinically. The publicly simply responded to the animation, the sincerity, the sense that she meant every moment. Her look became iconic almost overnight, copied across continents and across decades. Yet through all of this, Audrey herself remained tucked away in the countryside, collecting animals, keeping her pregnancy secret, resisting long-term commitments. Paramount grew impatient. Her agent did not. Scarcity only raised her value. Italian producers drifted in and out, including Dino De Laurentiis, floating possibilities, planting ideas. One of them was Tolstoy's War and Peace. The role of Natasha hovered, unspoken at first, then increasingly inevitable. Then came the blow. Audrey miscarried. It was devastating, particularly for a woman determined to give her child the security she herself had never known. She turned, as she often did, to faith. And she turned forward. If she could not yet be a mother, she would become something else entirely. Natasha. By the end of spring 1955, negotiations were underway. Meetings, limousines, Lake Como, careful maneuvering. When the deal was finally sealed, it transformed everything. Audrey became one of the highest paid actresses in cinema. For 12 weeks' work, she would earn $350,000, plus expenses, overtime penalties, creative approvals. Mel's deal was smaller but still substantial. The headlines were immediate, so was the backlash. British newspapers bristled. Why wasn't she making films at home? Why was she earning foreign currency? Why was her husband always beside her? Mel was blamed. Audrey was framed as malleable, dominated, and protected.
Man,
she insisted
the British press. Ugh.
The British press is brutal.
Brutal. I don't think people realize how much of our current tabloid culture originates in the fetid womb that is the British press.
Well, and how many people have probably died because of the British press?
Yes. Yeah. Sarah Kane's Blasted didn't come out of a vacuum. Mm-hmm. 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 Friend of the pod.
It's a really good play, that one. You have to see the right production of it, though.
Yeah, you don't want to go to see the the student production of Blasted. You want to go see
but at the same time, you don't want to see the like super high end production of it. There was this production I saw of it in New Zealand in the early 2000s, and it was in like a fringe, it was like a basement. I think it was called the Basement Theatre, and because it was like a top theatre company in New Zealand, and because it was so like close in and claustrophobic and immediate, it really heightened the play. And then I saw it at the Lyric in Hammersmith, which is not a West End theatre, but it is quite a big theatre, and it was like a very well appointed like really good set design, all of this sort of thing, and it made it very like remote as a play.
It should be. That's a rock and roll punk play. That's a punk play. That play should be done in a place called the Basement, with open pipes and maybe asbestos, and that's the play that it's a black box. It's a black box play. It doesn't need the proscenium and 80-pound tickets and stars. Yeah, it's like you're cutting against the grain doing it like that.
I mean, Old Ladies still walked out, but
good.
It wasn't as affecting as the Basement Theatre production of it.
Well, they paid for the right to walk out, didn't they? That's really what you're paying for.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, and they're probably like subscribers.
Sure. Yeah. They're very tired. Go support local theater. Go to the show. If you're young and you're
Go to
dating,
the show.
go to the show. Don't join the theater. Don't
No.
join the theater. But do go to the show.
Anyway, Audrey insisted she didn't need protecting, only advising. And the facts were inconvenient to the narrative. Within months of her marriage, her earning power had increased exponentially. If this was domination, it was unusually lucrative. Still, the rumors stuck. Mel and Audrey had resolved never to be separated by work. They would make films together or nearby or not at all. Audrey even said she would choose marriage over career if forced. She meant it. But the cost of that decision, creatively, emotionally, was only beginning to reveal itself. Love in their case would become inseparable from work and eventually inseparable from control. Audrey was, by all accounts, one of the most benevolent monarchs ever to rule over a film. She rarely abused her power. What she expected, and what her War and Peace contract spelled out in clause after clause, was the right to advise, to warn, and to be consulted. I never realized so many things could go wrong, she said after reading the contract. But she didn't yet realize how difficult it would be to achieve what she genuinely believed was best, not just for herself, but for the film. The first real test came early with casting. The role of Pierre Bezukhov is Tolstoy's moral center, thoughtful, pacifist, awkward intellectual, not a conventional hero. Audrey knew instantly who should play him, Peter Ustinov. Ustinov? Yeah. She pushed hard. Dino De Laurentiis winced, not because it was a bad idea, but because it was a dangerous one. Ustinov was clever, cultivated, brilliant, but not, he argued, a star big enough to balance Audrey. Hollywood, he said, could not risk pairing its radiant heroine with an intellectual in spectacles. He countered with Gregory Peck. It was an exquisitely awkward dilemma. Audrey adored Peck. The public adored them together. But what of Mel? And what of the rumors that had once followed Peck through Rome? In the end, the compromise was Henry Fonda, a choice Audrey approved and one that likely suited Mel too. Where Audrey exercised her authority most effectively was in how she looked and how she was seen. She secured the cinematographer Jack Cardiff, assembled a trusted hair and makeup team, and quietly began forming what every great star needs, a court. Familiar faces, a protective circle. She asked Givenchy to design the costumes. He declined formally, but oversaw fabrics and colors, ensuring that they honored her. The price of authenticity was the loss of her gamine haircut. Some lamented that Audrey had grown up too fast, but she was already 25 and still looked younger than her years. Tolstoy's description of Natasha, wide-mouthed, full of life, hovering between childhood and womanhood, felt uncannily prophetic. King Vidor believed it completely. Audrey is Natasha, he said, fresh out of the book. Unfortunately, physical resemblance was not enough. Filming began at Cinecittà during an oppressive Roman summer. Heat, long drives, exhausting days. Audrey endured it all with discipline, learning to ride despite her fear, mastering court dances, standing for hours in period gowns. She worked hard and relentlessly, but the role gave her little room to become. Vidor was a dutiful adapter, but not a daring one. The film absorbed Tolstoy's events, but missed his transformation, the way war, loss, and betrayal hardened Natasha into a woman who has lived through every season. Audrey was denied that journey. Vidor, entranced by her charm, seemed unwilling to let her grow up on screen. What she offered instead was what came most naturally: radiance, innocence, and grace. And that proved sufficient in the film's crucial moment. Natasha's seduction by the dashing officer played by Vittorio Gassman. Because Audrey's Natasha had never been allowed depth beyond girlish purity, her sudden willingness to betray love rang false, not tragic, but confusing. Vidor later admitted as much. Audrey was his muse more than his collaborator. He adored her. Even as War and Peace struggled at the box office, he remained devoted. A director's delight, he called her. Critics were divided. Some found her charming but unchanged. Others accused her of not maturing fast enough. She seemed once again to be punished for being exactly what she was. Yet history offered a small vindication. When the Russians made their own War and Peace in 1966, they cast Ludmila Savilavia.
Oh boy.
Hey,
Yeah,
an actress strikingly similar in type to Audrey. In the end, Audrey had been right all along. What failed her hair was not her ability, but a system unwilling to let innocence evolve into experience.